Number 1. Sweet Daddy Siki. Sweet Daddy Siki, born on January 15, 1945 in New Orleans, Louisiana, was one of the most colorful and controversial figures in professional wrestling history. Known for his brash persona and flashy outfits, Siki was a master at playing the villain. He was part of the 1960s and 1970s wrestling scene, where his charisma and in-ring skills made him a standout. What many fans don't realize is that he didn't just play the bad guy, he lived it. Siki was often involved in intense rivalries that captivated audiences, but behind the scenes he was also a key figure in helping to integrate wrestling during a time when racial tensions were high. While many wrestlers of his time were either white or Hispanic, Siki was one of the first African-American wrestlers to get a major push in various wrestling promotions. In fact, Siki's controversial bad guy character pushed the boundaries of what was acceptable in the sport, often addressing issues that were taboo at the time. Despite the negative reaction from some, he fought for his place in a system that wasn't always welcoming to people of color. But there's one thing that shocks most people today. Siki was never given the world championship he deserved. Even though he was a top contender and drew big crowds, backstage politics and personal rivalries prevented him from reaching the very top of the sport. Siki's story is one of immense talent, resilience, and untapped potential. He may not have won the biggest titles, but his influence on wrestling cannot be denied. On January 16, 2025, Siki passed away at the age of 80, leaving behind a legacy that will forever change the way we see professional wrestling. Number 2. Black Bart. Richard Harris, known to the wrestling world as Black Bart, was more than just a performer, he was a real-life cowboy. Born on July 18, 1948, he grew up riding bulls and working on ranches long before he ever stepped into a wrestling ring. Unlike many wrestlers who adopted cowboy gimmicks, Bart didn't need to fake it. His rough, no-nonsense attitude was genuine, making him one of the most believable characters in wrestling history. What many people don't know is that he was once considered for the NWA World Heavyweight Championship, but backstage politics robbed him of the opportunity. Had things gone differently, his career might have been on the same level as legends like Ric Flair and Dusty Rhodes. Bart found success in the National Wrestling Alliance, NWA, where he became known for his brutal, hard-hitting matches. He battled some of the biggest stars of his time and held multiple championships. But what fans often forget is that he had a brief run in WWF, where he even stepped into the ring with a young Undertaker. However, Bart never truly fit into WWF's flashy style. He was an old-school brawler who believed wrestling should be raw and real. After retiring, he spent his later years training younger wrestlers, including Booker T, who would go on to become a 6-time world champion. Despite his contributions, Black Bart never got the recognition he deserved. On January 9, 2025, he passed away at the age of 76. Though his name may not be as well known today, his legacy lives on through the wrestlers he helped shape and the stories of an era where wrestling was as real as the men who fought for it. Number 3. Jax Dane. Jax Dane, born on December 18, 1983, in Austin, Texas, was a powerhouse in the world of professional wrestling. Known for his imposing size, incredible strength, and no-nonsense attitude, Dane quickly earned a reputation as one of the toughest competitors in the ring. He first rose to prominence in the National Wrestling Alliance, NWA, where he captured the NWA World Heavyweight Championship, solidifying his place as a top talent. But what most fans don't know is that before becoming a wrestling sensation, Jax Dane was a college football player, and his athleticism on the field translated perfectly into his wrestling career. Dane's career wasn't always smooth sailing. Early on, he had to fight through a series of obstacles, including injuries and doubts from the wrestling community, to earn his place in the spotlight. His rise to the top was not handed to him. It was earned through hard work, dedication, and sheer willpower. He became a true example of perseverance, often competing against bigger names and proving himself time and again. Despite his success, his story remained one of the most underrated in wrestling, with many overlooking just how much he sacrificed to get to where he was. In addition to his success in the NWA, Dane also made a mark in other promotions, including Ring of Honor, ROH, and Global Force Wrestling, GFW, where he took on some of the best in the business. Yet despite his ability to put on hard-hitting matches and bring a raw, authentic energy to every performance, he never received the same level of fame as some of his peers. His underrated legacy became even more tragic when, on February 7, 2025, Jax Dane passed away at the age of 41. His death shocked the wrestling community, leaving fans and fellow wrestlers alike mourning the loss of a man who had so much more to offer to the sport. Number 4. Colonel DeBeers, Edward Wiskoski. Edward Wiskoski, better known as Colonel DeBeers, made his name in professional wrestling as one of the most despised villains of the 1980s and 1990s. Born on July 14, 1954, in the small town of Wyoming, Wiskoski didn't always dream of being a wrestler. In fact, he spent much of his early life in the military before stepping into the squared circle. It was during his time in the service that he developed the persona of Colonel DeBeers, a strict, authoritarian figure who was proud, bold, and brash. What most people don't know is that Wiskoski didn't just play the role of a villain, he embodied it in a way that was unlike many of his contemporaries. Colonel DeBeers was known for his racist and xenophobic character, which shocked audiences and created heat with fans. However, it was these very characteristics that made him one of the most memorable villains in wrestling history. His gimmick was designed to get the crowd to hate him, and he did it masterfully. Throughout his wrestling career, DeBeers wrestled in multiple promotions, including the National Wrestling Alliance, NWA, and World Championship Wrestling, WCW, where he feuded with some of the top stars of the era. Despite his character being so hated, Wiskoski was a very private and humble person outside of the ring, a contrast that surprised many who only knew him for his heel persona. One hidden fact about Colonel DeBeers is that he was actually a great mentor to many younger wrestlers who came up in the business, including Stone Cold Steve Austin. He never reached the same level of fame as some of the bigger names in wrestling, but his impact on the industry, especially in helping shape the careers of others, is undeniable. On February 8, 2025, Wiskoski passed away at the age of 70. His legacy as Colonel DeBeers, however, continues to live on in the memories of fans and the many wrestlers he mentored throughout his career. Number 5. Hunter Q. Robbins III, Robin Hunt. Hunter Q. Robbins III, born Robin Hunt on February 25, 1957, is a name that few fans remember today, but his contributions to professional wrestling were undeniable. Robbins, who wrestled primarily in the 1980s and early 1990s, was known for his unique persona as the self-proclaimed manager of wrestlers, which set him apart from other performers who were primarily in the ring. He wasn't the largest or most physically imposing, but his sharp mind and ability to manipulate situations made him one of the most effective villains in the business. Many fans remember him as a part of various wrestling alliances, where he worked alongside some of the most infamous and feared wrestlers of his time. What many don't know, however, is that Robbins had a hand in shaping the careers of some top names in the industry. Despite not wrestling in many high-profile matches himself, he played a pivotal role in helping to establish storylines, create rivalries, and build the charisma of many rising stars, often taking them under his wing as a manager. Robbins was a master of psychology in wrestling, always staying a step ahead of his opponents and outwitting them with his verbal skills. His ability to get under the skin of both fans and wrestlers was legendary. However, his career was marred by frequent controversies, particularly due to his often abrasive and provocative antics outside the ring. These controversies led to his eventual departure from major promotions. What shocked many after Robbins' passing on January 20th, 2025, was how little recognition he received for his influence on the wrestling world. Many fans never realized just how important his behind-the-scenes work was, and his death at the age of 67 left a void that was rarely acknowledged. Despite this, his impact is undeniable. He helped mold the personalities and careers of countless wrestlers who would go on to make history. Number 6. Mighty Inoue. Mighty Inoue, born on December 18, 1949 in Japan, was one of the most respected figures in the world of professional wrestling, especially in his home country. Known for his fierce style, powerful moves, and undeniable charisma, Inoue made a significant impact on the Japanese wrestling scene during the 1970s and 1980s. He became widely known for his work in All Japan Pro Wrestling, AJPW, where he was a staple for several years. Despite his contributions to the sport, Mighty Inoue's career was often overshadowed by other legendary names in the industry. However, his skill and ability to connect with the fans made him a fan favorite in Japan. He was involved in many thrilling matches, earning him a reputation for his hard-hitting style and determination. What most people don't know is that he was also an accomplished martial artist before becoming a full-time wrestler. Inoue continued to wrestle until the early 2000s, but transitioned into retirement relatively early, opting to spend his later years out of the spotlight. His legacy remains strong, especially in Japan, where his matches are still remembered fondly by fans. Sadly, Mighty Inoue passed away in late 2024, and his death was a significant moment for wrestling fans worldwide, especially in Japan. Though Inoue's death occurred in late 2024, it is included in this list because it was widely recognized starting in early 2025. The delay in the news of his passing made his death one of the notable losses of the early months of 2025. Number 7. Kuniaki Kobayashi. Kuniaki Kobayashi was a legendary figure in Japanese professional wrestling, known for his incredible technical skills and contributions to the sport. Born on January 24, 1956 in Japan, Kobayashi became a key player in the history of Japanese wrestling, particularly in All Japan Pro Wrestling, AJPW. His matches were a blend of hard-hitting strikes and technical grappling, which earned him a dedicated following both in Japan and internationally. Kobayashi's wrestling career spanned several decades, and he became one of the most respected wrestlers of his time. Known for his high work rate and ability to adapt to different styles, he was a cornerstone of AJPW during the 1980s and 1990s. Kobayashi worked with some of the biggest names in wrestling, leaving a lasting impact on the sport. Despite his fame in Japan, Kobayashi was never quite able to achieve the same level of global recognition as some of his contemporaries. Nonetheless, his skill in the ring and his contributions to the development of Japanese wrestling earned him a place in the annals of wrestling history. Kuniaki Kobayashi passed away on September 9, 2024, at the age of 68. His death was a significant loss to the wrestling community, especially in Japan, where he had been a hero for many years. His name is included in this list because his passing occurred at the end of 2024, but the news of it became widely recognized at the start of 2025.